Hello and welcome back to Get Rich, the podcast that helps you do just that. Get rich and stay rich. Now, I'm your host, Molly Benjamin, founder of Ladies Finance Club. And today we are diving into a topic that so many of you have been asking about, separation. Because nobody walks down the aisle thinking about the exit. But whether it is you, your sister, your best friend, chances are this conversation is going to hit home for someone in your life. And here's the thing, when relationships break down, we go straight to the emotions, which is completely valid, but the financial side gets left in the dark. And that is exactly where things can go very, very wrong. And we've all heard the stories where, women who've dedicated their whole lives to being amazing mothers are then in a really poor financial situation. So I've brought someone in who knows the numbers inside and out and has actually lived the experience herself. She is a mortgage broker, a Ladies Finance Club ambassador, and founder of Stella Finance Group, and someone who built her business so well that it actually kept running when she recently went through one of the toughest years of her life last year, which she will talk more about on the podcast. So we're going to be covering in this episode when to get your finances in order and what actually happens with the family home and the mistakes she sees women making over and over again and why super matters more than most people realize and why just knowing your numbers before you sit down with a lawyer can save you serious time, money, and heartache. So this one is for anyone considering a separation or maybe going through one, or their friend is going through one, or they're just wanting to be financially prepped for whatever life throws at them. All right, let's get into it. And just a quick shout out, our LFC directory is now live. It features fantastic LFC ambassadors like the amazing Lisa, who's going to be on the podcast. So if you want to check that out, head over to ladiesfinanceclub.com and you can find the link there to our LFC directory and connect with an amazing expert who can help you with any of your financial needs. All right, let's get into it. Lisa, welcome to the Get Rich podcast. It's so great to have you on.
Thank you so much. So great to be here. So great to see you.
Yeah, so just for context, everyone listening, I am breastfeeding while I ask the first few questions because little Marley had a little meltdown. So she'll be joining us, but it shouldn't affect the conversation. But Lisa, I know you've been on a bit of a journey yourself recently. Can you just fill us in and our listeners on what's been happening in the world of Lisa?
Yeah, it's been an interesting chapter, one I couldn't anticipate, but unfortunately I was diagnosed with breast cancer in May of last year. And just went through the whole experience of a diagnosis of breast cancer. I had a double mastectomy in late May, and then had chemotherapy from July till September, and took about 8 months out of the business, and thankfully I set up the business in a way that it could keep going without me needing to be there, which was, I'm very grateful for. And now I'm back and the energy's back. We're back in full swing. One of the beautiful things I think that I've discovered in coming back is this is where I'm meant to be. There was a real risk that I would come back to the business and be like, oh, yuck, no, not for me. And it absolutely was the opposite. I was just so excited to get back behind my desk and speak to clients and help again. And so that's been a very nice, place to land, I think. I'm going to be coming at it from a different angle than I used to. Everything used to be about just hyper scheduling my day, whereas now it's going to be a bit more of a lot more time and space for balance.
Yeah, well, I'm so glad you're feeling better and feeling well again.
Yeah, thank you.
Out of interest for the listeners as well, what were your kind of early symptoms and signs, and if you're happy to share, how did you discover that you had breast cancer? Because I think it's always, I know for my sister, when she was going through blood cancer, she had night sweats, and the doctors told her for 2 years she was just really stressed. She started losing weight. She was feeling really tired. But what were some of those signs, those early kind of, I guess, red flags?
Yeah. Looking back, I think my periods were starting to go all over the place, but it was very easy. I'm at the, tender age of 48. So it was very easy just to go, it's perimenopause, it's menopause, my hormones, of course, they're crazy. But then what started to lead me to explore it was that my breasts were really sore all the time. Whereas before, they used to be sore only in a certain amount of days before my period. So that started to be a bit of that's a bit weird. And it was actually my daughter who helped me diagnose it, if that can be said that way because I was reading to them at night and I kept going like this. I just kept rubbing. And my daughter said, Mum, why do you keep rubbing your breast? You've been doing that a lot lately. And it become a habit that I hadn't even, drawn my own attention to.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, you know what? Yeah, they have been sore for a bit long. And then I went into my room and I had implants before.
Yeah.
And, so I was pressing quite hard and I found a lump.
Oh, wow.
And thankfully it was above the implant and I could palpate and feel it. It felt like a very tiny pea-sized lump, I guess. And then just, went through the process of being diagnosed super, super quickly.
Oh my gosh. And had you been getting your regular checkups as well?
Yeah, so I was never one to get mammograms, main reason being, and personal choice, definitely not, advice or anything like that, was because I had such dense breasts. Every time I had an ultrasound over the years, we got to know all of my lumps. It was not uncommon for me to have 15 lumps every single time I went. So I just chose to go down the ultrasound route. And I can actually say that even through my diagnosis, I never once had a mammogram. We were able to get that full diagnosis from doing fine needle biopsies, core needle biopsies, and a range of different types of ultrasounds. And ultimately, there's a really good facility, it's in North Sydney, that you can do an MRI on your breasts. And it comes at a cost, but it is a very good tool for detecting as well.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And it's just like such an important reminder for women if you find
really
you're not checking your breasts often, and if you do find something, investigate it straight away. If something doesn't feel right, you have to be your own kind of investigator there and get it investigated as soon as possible.
And I think you have to be persistent too, because it is easy for a doctor to say, you're 48, it's just menopause, don't worry. Or let's go on HRT,
Yeah.
So you do have to, be your own cheerleader.
You absolutely do. Exactly as I said with Bri, like she just kept going, you just have a really stressful job and you do have to be your own cheerleader. Why is this topic of separating and making sure that you were financially prepared for a separation, why is this important to you?
It's important to me. I guess it came to me as a niche because I personally went through it. So I separated when my children were very young and, went through the whole financial separation and talking about the assets and how we're going to divvy them up and what the next steps are going to be, and successfully did that in a very amicable way. But what I soon realised, and unfortunately through COVID is when I realised it, is that so many people were separating and so many women were so lost with deer in headlights. Just, they'd come to me and they'd say, we're getting divorced. And I don't know where to start, and I realised this was a trend and lots of people were coming to me with this same question. And there was a lot of emotion, a lot of charge, a lot of very uninformed hopes and dreams. And in terms of what it's going to look like after that separation. And I felt like, you know what, I've got a duty here. I know how this flies and I know finance so well, and I can really help, from an empathetic point of view, but also from a very firm, that's not going to happen point of view, which I know sounds odd, but I feel like it's important before so much money is spent on lawyers and negotiations and the energy spent just to know the facts. I want to keep the house, but can I keep the house?
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess what are some of those common, big financial mistakes you're seeing people make during separation?
Yeah, one of the biggest ones is people will think that the liability that they have against the mortgage, so it's against the property, so the mortgage is all they need to be able to take on to be able to keep the home.
Yeah.
And it's not that, unfortunately. What it is, and let's just, to keep things simple, say they're going to split 50-50.
Yeah.
If the house is worth $5 million and you've got a $200,000 debt, you need to raise $2.5 million plus that. Say $200,000 debt. So you need to raise 2.7 to buy out your partner if it's 50-50. And a lot of people don't realize that asset, that house, the equity that's available in that house is something that either party has a right over. And that's where it usually falls down. And it's usually, heart-wrenching because there might be somebody whose parents have gifted them a home.
Yeah.
And that's become the marital home. And now the partner can take half of that home. And, you're forced to move out regardless of how that that came to you. That's definitely one of the biggest ones. The other one is, I'll speak to my lawyer first and then I'll come and get you for my finance.
Yeah.
And I think that I can work at the same time as somebody's working with their lawyer, but I do feel it's probably the best first step,
Yeah.
because that conversation where I can just say, look, the $5 million home, it's not going to happen. We can't keep that. And I know it sucks. And I know you don't want to hear this, but I just want to save you a whole bunch of heartache
Yeah.
and, negotiations and energy. But guess what? Here's the numbers. And what you can afford is a $1 million 2-bedroom apartment.
Yeah.
And that is going to be your new home for you and your children.
Yeah.
And you're going to live in there, you're going to own it, and you're going to start a new chapter without of the ugly stuff before. So we've just got to let go of that property, not emotionally attached to that property, which a lot of people do, and I get it.
Yeah.
And dream about what this next chapter could look like.
So you're a mortgage broker, so you help people find the right loan for their needs. I always think of you guys as like stylists. Instead of finding the right outfit, you find the right loan. Everyone's different. So how, I guess, as a mortgage broker, like the amount of women you're seeing who are going through separation, is there a bit of like a standard of how many stay in the home versus how many end up just going, nah, I just can't afford the home on my income?
Yeah. The majority end up selling the home.
Yeah.
That's definitely what I see from my experience. And sometimes that's even a decision that's not even, purely based on numbers. Sometimes it's just, you know what, there's just too much bad memories in there. And, there are women obviously out there who out-earn their partners and do have the ability to keep the home.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's not the best decision, because you've now got a big home and a lawn and gutters and driveways to clean and, all that stuff to upkeep the house, as well as the mortgage, as well as trying to be a present mother potentially and work your job. It's not. It's not. And if you can go into a unit or a smaller house that's manageable and you don't have to, pay for or do all of those jobs, it starts to become a bit more reasonable.
And I guess it must be such a big emotional mind shift to go, this is where I saw our forever home. This was where I had already made so many stories and memories in my head, and now it's all changing.
Yeah, and that's one of the part where my heart breaks for when we have that first confidential chat, and I just hold space for everybody to get it out, talk about all the things, have all the emotions. And I know that that's the direction the chat's going to be. And so, as I mentioned before, I come in with empathy. I've been through it myself.
Yeah, definitely. And I think when you're going through a separation, you need a good team around you. You need a good mortgage broker. You need a good, if you can, if you're in that financial position, a good financial advisor. Definitely a fantastic family lawyer. We work with so many amazing female family lawyers, and they do such good work.
They're amazing.
They are amazing. I love them.
I've got some amazing women that are, that I work with that will, refer into, and I'll also get them to help my clients who may be lost and need that support. And even mediators that are amazing. And I think that's one of the benefits of landing with, a mortgage broker, because we're so well connected, and we can help in a time when you're lost, connect you with the right people. At the moment, I'm having conversations with a forensic accountant.
Yeah.
And she's amazing. And her job is to go and help women figure out what their name is on, what have they signed, what trusts are out there, what things do I look for. In addition to that, they need a conveyancer, like you said, a family lawyer. There's a whole plethora of people they're going to need to navigate it, which we can help with.
Yeah. And just out of interest, what is the main reason you're finding, again, high level, it's not going to be every single case, but what are those main reasons that you find women are separating? And are you finding that it is around, like, what I guess the ABS tells us is it's around, that 40 to 50 mark?
Yeah, it's absolutely in that 40 to 50 mark. I can definitely say that that's when I'm seeing it. A lot of it is women have had enough of carrying multiple loads. So they're now working full time and raising children and trying to get to all the events. And we all know that image of the woman with the, thought bubble above her head while she's going to bed at night. And, it's just that mental load.
Yeah.
And they're just done with all that, plus having to perhaps carry a partner who they no longer connect with or don't feel like sees them anymore. And it just dissolves, as a result of that. And not all of them are ugly. I've had quite a few clients who I feel like I've raised them like my babies. I've helped them get their first property and then their next, investment property, something their SMSF, and then they'll present to me in a meeting together and just say, Lisa, we're separating. We're kind of ending this. And then I can amicably help both of them. We'll have that top level chat in that meeting, and then I'll separate their information and my CRM in the background, and then I can help both of them. And that's a perfect situation, where they're both amicable. They don't need to involve, courts and all the rest of it. And we can just divvy up the assets and refinance and sort out the mess.
Yeah. And are you finding in your conversations women aren't claiming as much as they should be claiming in these separations?
Yeah. It still surprises me, because some of these women that sit in front of me, I'm in awe of them, of their career and on what they've done. And I'm so excited to speak with them. And then, I'll mention something like, well, what about super? How much super has he got in there? I don't want to touch your super. I don't care.
Yeah.
Well, no, you've stopped working, for 20 years, and that's a super opportunity that you missed out to help raise the children so he can advance his career. So there is a reason to actually want that. And a lot of them, it just surprises me. I think the thing that surprises me the most is the elation that I see on their face when I tell them they actually have the capacity to either A, buy their partner out, or B, buy their own home. Most of them just don't think it can be done. And I love delivering that news, even if it's not the $5 million house or whatever, but if it's, something that they can buy. I love that.
So as we were saying before, look, if you're someone listening or you're thinking of separating, or maybe your friend's thinking of separating, we tell our girlfriends everything, don't we? So if this information might be not useful for you, but it might be useful for them. So Lisa, you're saying actually have a confidential chat with a mortgage broker first and find out financially, would you be able to afford the house you're in before you speak to maybe like a family lawyer. Again, you can have generally a free chat with a family lawyer. And I really recommend you do that as well before anything's potentially maybe like mentioned to your partner, because people get funny about money. And even I've heard multiple stories, and I'm sure you have as well, Lisa, where it's said, no, it will all be done very amicably. And then things start getting lost and money starts getting moved and it starts getting messy. Do you have any, I guess, kind of case studies you can share of that?
Yeah, I mean, I've got one that I'm working on at the moment, and she actually works in law and, has built a business, and she's a gun. She's done so well to build, what she's built. And even at one stage, she had brought her partner into the business to assist. It all went bad, and, they started talking about numbers and separating, but her ex-partner now is really stalling because her business is going so well that he wants to get a new valuation, and then he wants to wait another 12 months to get another valuation, and then the house is going up in value, so then he wants to wait for that so he can get a piece of that pie. And it's horrible. She just wants to separate, love their children, figure out a way where they can, both care for their children in a way that's meaningful to them, but
and move on with their lives.
Yeah, but it's just so ugly for the wrong reasons,
And are you finding many of these women have binding financial agreements, or like what we call in America prenups? No.
Yeah, no. And it's something I talk about all the time now with my younger couples. I'll meet, let's just say as an example, because I've got a client in my head at the moment, a guy who has got a couple of investment properties. He's got a new partner and he's just feeling a bit uneasy. They're going to buy the next property, but we're doing an equity release from one of his properties to help buy this property. And he's feeling a little like he's carrying a bit more of the load.
Yeah.
And I can see the anxiety in making the decision. And that's one of those moments where I suggested, have you thought about a binding financial agreement? And for the listeners who don't know what that is, that's like you said, it's like an American prenup, but you can get them done as a de facto relationship. You can get it done as someone who's married. It doesn't have to be done, before or after. There's lots of different types you can get. And it just protects either party, especially when there's no kids involved. It's very solid when there aren't, with things that you've worked really, really hard for. And I'm now talking about that more and more. I think we should be
Yeah.
okay with this. We're in a society now where men and women are working,
Yeah.
It's
And we're coming to the table with more than we ever have had before. And we want to
absolutely.
protect that as well. And I know, like, a way, and I've said this on another episode we did with some family lawyers from Lander and Rogers, but I said, at the end of the day, if you don't decide, someone else will. And it will
Yep.
probably be, it could be
That's so
family
true.
lawyers, it could be the government, it could be the court system. So you may as well go, hey, let's decide for ourselves what happens here. And I think if you go, okay, well, what's mine is mine, and then what we build together is ours together. If someone's got an issue with that, that could be a red flag.
Yeah.
But again, things will obviously differ when women are having children, and then all of a sudden that has a huge effect on their earning capacity and if they're staying at home and those factors as well.
It's interesting that you say that point, because I'm learning a lot retrospectively from going through a separation myself, and then all the things you do after the separation that you put in place. And one of the things that's really stood out to me that I'm a big advocate for is a parenting plan.
Yeah.
And Relationships Australia offer a free kind of template on their website. And
Great.
I think everyone should do it. Not
So what is a
after
parenting plan?
Yeah, so it's basically an agreement as to how you're going to raise your children. And it covers all the things. So it covers financial, it covers, exposure to toxic chemicals, nutrition, schooling. Like, you can go as deep as you like. And I've
Right.
gone very deep with mine. But I feel like we're in the era now where everything's on the table.
Yeah.
Let's develop parenting plans before we have a kid, or, after we've had a kid, and to help us navigate. And that parenting plan changes in separation.
I love that. That's great.
Yeah,
I'm
I do
actually,
too.
this is a complete side note, but I'm actually looking at doing a parenting course at the moment because
Love.
I was like, it's so funny. We have like puppy school when you get a puppy,
Yeah,
but we don't have
that's true.
any parenting school. And this is like, obviously she's only 10 weeks old, but I'm like, I want to be on like the forefoot. So when,
Totally.
those first behavioral things start happening, I actually have some tools
Absolutely.
as opposed to relying on Instagram, which, hey, some of the stuff's good, but like,
Yeah,
I've got nothing else. Like, I don't know. Like, I
it's
only have
true. And
my own parents as role models, but I think they did a pretty good job. But like, the times have changed. Social media didn't exist back then. Like, all those different things.
I agree wholeheartely. I think the more we can do to equip ourselves, have that chest of tools, the better we're going to be able to navigate. And that's, the parenting plan, that's the BFAs. It's just those big conversations before shit gets real.
Yeah. So I guess we've got like recent interest rate rises, and obviously that does affect borrowing capacity. How would that look in a separation scenarios? Do you guys just model the numbers?
Yeah. So what I tend to do with my clients when we're looking at these situations is I'll do a Zoom session and I'll share my screen and I'll take them through everything. So rather than talk at them, we'll develop those numbers together. So the first thing I'll do is I'll show them, a funding calculation of what their property's worth. If we take away the cost to sell, if selling is what we're doing, then the impact of that, I don't know, 2% on what's left. We take away the mortgage. This is, your remaining equity.
Yeah.
And then I'll take them through to a product comparison. And it's usually one I've already prepared and thought about, and I've picked the lenders based on their unique circumstances. And then I'll talk them through the different rates that are there, the different options. Quite often when there is a separation and they are downsizing, they're going to have a fair bit of cash left over, and they want it there for their own safety net. So an offset facility is going to be important. And some might be paying a mortgage on their own for the very, very first time. So fixing the rate may be a really good idea, because that provides them with stability. They know the known amount of what they're paying every month for the next year or two, depending what fixed period they do. And that just gives them a sense of certainty and comfort. A very volatile market at the moment, because as you know, and as I'm sure a lot of the listeners know, as those interest rates go up, your borrowing capacity goes down, and it makes it harder. Some people can't even refinance because what they used to be able to get, they can't get anymore.
Yeah.
Now, if you have a really a good broker, they'll know that there's ways around that now. There are what's called streamlined or fast refinances, and that's where we can refinance dollar for dollar as long as we land you in a better position without borrowing capacity coming into it. So that is an attractive option when we need it.
Okay, awesome.
Mm.
And I guess as well, like if someone's thinking about separating, like how early should they start planning their finances? Because I
Yeah.
have a few, I've spoken to a few people within our community and they are
Yeah.
definitely thinking about separating and they're trying to get their finances sorted now. But I guess, is it ever too early to start?
I think as soon as those feelings are coming in and as soon as you've started to resolve in your head that this just isn't working,
Yeah.
that there's going to need to be a next chapter, that's when you start exploring. And like you touched on before, I think it's very important to not tell your partner that you're going down that road,
Yeah.
just so you can explore all of those things slowly and at your own pace and without anything getting hidden in the process. So I think the earlier, the better, for sure.
And having been through the process yourself and everything that's going on in your world, is there anything
Yeah.
that you wish you had done differently or you wish that more women knew before they start this journey?
Yeah. For me, it was pretty clean.
Mhm.
In my instance, most of the assets were with me, and my partner was very amicable and was willing to let me keep what I had earned in the absence of a BFA, which I guess I was very lucky, in hindsight. I think one of the most important things I can say is even in a solid relationship, always know what's happening. Always know if you're signing something, don't just sign it because you've been asked to sign it. Read it. Say, "Oh, I just want to take my time with this and just read through it so I understand, just it makes me feel better." And knowing what you're signing, knowing what accounts your names are on, keeping your own
Yeah.
separate record of your passwords and logins and all that sort of stuff
Yeah.
is really, really important. I think that's the one thing that I see a lot of
Yeah.
women. Yeah. Oh no, he just does everything. I
Yeah.
don't.
And we
You know.
actually had a woman recently reach out to us and say, "Hey, we've done up our estate plan. I don't understand it. Is there anyone in your
Yeah.
community who can explain it to us?" And I was like, "Absolutely, there is." So I
Yeah.
hooked her up with a different, obviously, estate planner, and they
Yeah.
could really
Yeah.
explain what they're signing and what that means and questions they should go back to their partner with because a lot of this stuff is jargon. We're not in this
Oh
world. We don't
yeah.
work in this world. It's like another language. It's
Yeah.
okay to ask for advice and get
Absolutely. And I
help as well.
I think that wills piece is an important one.
Yeah.
Certainly with me and my diagnosis of breast cancer, the first thing I did was go, to my family lawyer and just say, "Girls, I think we just need to rejig a few things."
Yeah.
And I wanted to set up a testamentary trust for my children. I don't understand any of that terminology. It's
Yeah.
way beyond me. And, she'll sit there and draw me the tree of all my,
Yeah.
entities. And I'm like, thank gosh I've got a professional doing this for me because it certainly is not something you can even if you know all the things you want to do, you're very, very sure of where everything's going to go. There's so many things that you learn throughout that process. And
Yeah.
that's another important thing to have in
And
place.
and I also like to put it out there as well. Like, obviously, things we're talking about, advice, there's a cost involved, but there's also free services involved. There's Relationships Australia, there's a
Yeah.
National Debt Helpline. There are free resources where they can support you through this journey as well.
Yeah, yeah. Another thing I've just thought of that I see
Mhm.
quite often, and this is something for people to be aware of, is men putting liabilities in the woman's name.
Yeah.
So they get credit cards in her name and
Car
car loans in
loans.
her
Yeah.
name, and
We see the
when
car
it comes,
loans very often.
oh yeah,
And
it's such a
just
big
as
one.
I know, and just as a reminder for people, if your name's on it, you own that loan.
That's
And even
right.
if
That's
it's
right.
two of you on the loan, if they disappear, you still are liable for that whole
Yeah,
loan.
that's right. And even in the mortgage, this happens during the separation chapter, is one partner might be not overly, I don't know, amicable, let's just say, and starts to stop paying their portion of the mortgage. There's a big impact of that. The banks want to be compassionate, but at the end of the day, you've signed a contract with them and you need
Yeah.
to make that mortgage repayment every single month. So then, you find yourself entering financial hardship.
Yeah.
And then that sounds like, okay, cool, that's an easy way out. But eventually you have to pay that money back,
Yeah.
and that accumulates. And then also lenders will then say, well, you went on financial hardship. I'm not sure that you're someone I want to back. So I'm going to wait 6 months of you being on clear repayments before I'm going to lend you money again. So you could be stuck in terms of what you can do.
Which again is why it's so important, ladies, you have your own emergency fund in your own name, which only you can access because of things like this. Yes, eventually once the separation is finalized, you might get that money back. You can top up your emergency fund again, but it's for these moments when life throws you an absolute curveball. All right. And just to finish up, Lisa, and this has been such an informative conversation. And I just think, you know, your real life example just brings so much helpful, like practical advice as well. I guess what's the number one piece of advice for someone considering separation?
Yeah, I think know your numbers, know what your name is on. Definitely speak with a mortgage broker in confidence to find out what your borrowing capacity is so that you know when you go in to negotiate that what you want is actually achievable.
Yeah.
And I think knowledge is power in this situation. If you know exactly what you can do, then you can go in with so much more confidence and negotiate for what, you know, you really want and realistically can have.
Fantastic. All right. Well, Lisa is one of our fabulous Ladies Finance Club ambassadors. And if you'd like to connect with the fabulous Lisa, we'll pop links into the show notes where you can connect with her. But Lisa, for anyone else who's just listening and they're like, I need to chat to Lisa ASAP, where can they find you?
Yeah, sure. So Lisa Bridgett is my name. If you put that in Google, you'll find me pretty easily. Otherwise, Stella Finance Group is my business that I founded and I'm the principal director for. And you'll find links on my website to book in. We'll probably drop that link with this podcast anyway. But the easiest way to get me is just to book in at a time, you know, that works for you and we'll take it from there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for jumping on the podcast with us today,
My pleasure.
Lisa.
Thank you for having me.